Ashley Darby thought she could end the conversation with a single video, and she was wrong. Mendeecees thought he could deny his way out of the Tamar Braxton rumors, and that's not working either. Two separate implosions are unfolding in real time right now, one involving a housewife, her friend's son, and one of the most uncomfortable defense videos you've ever seen, while the other involves a love triangle, a furious gossip blogger, and a man who just challenged someone to meet him in person. What started as whispers and side eyes has exploded into full warfare, and the casualties keep piling up. Ashley posted a video that was supposed to clear her name, but instead it raised questions nobody was even asking. Mendeecees sat down for a radio interview meant to shut down speculation, but he stumbled over his words so badly that even his denials sound like confessions now. And somewhere in the background, funky Dineva is watching and waiting, knowing that his response is going to detonate whatever's left of Mendeecees' credibility. This isn't just drama. This is what happens when people who've spent years controlling their public image suddenly lose that control. The performance can't keep up with reality anymore. The mask slips and there's no production team to edit out the messy parts. Both of these stories reveal something about the gap between who people pretend to be on camera and who they actually are when those cameras stop rolling. Charisse Jackson Jordan sat down with Carlos King and spilled tea that had been brewing since the latest season of Real Housewives of Potomac aired. She positioned herself as the architect of the show, the original socialite who brought legitimacy to the franchise, the woman who's been used and discarded by producers who only want her when they need someone to stir the pot. Toxic relationships with the show's storyline, she suggested that producers ignored, being the catalyst for drama without getting the credit or the paycheck she deserves. Charisse covered all of it, and then she got to the part about Ashley Darby and her son Jackson, the relationship that everyone had been talking about, the situation that felt uncomfortable from the moment it hit our screens. Here's where it gets interesting. During the interview, Charisse's stance shifted. Earlier in the season, she'd expressed doubt about whether the relationship even happened. But sitting with Carlos, she defended the fact that two consenting adults can do whatever they want. She pivoted and repositioned herself as the reasonable one, the mature one, who understands that her son is grown and capable of making his own decisions. Charisse also couldn't help herself when it came to throwing shade at Ashley and Gizelle, calling out their fake storylines, their manufactured drama, their desperate attempts to stay relevant. She positioned herself as the truth teller in a sea of liars, the woman who's been carrying the real tea while everyone else performs for the cameras. And maybe there's truth in that. Maybe Ashley and Gizelle do construct narratives. Maybe they've been working together to push Charisse out since day one. The problem with Charisse's version of events is that she's talking out of both sides of her mouth. One minute she's on the show acting like Gizelle and Ashley are her friends, filming scenes with them, laughing and bonding. The next minute she's in interviews dragging them for being fake. One minute she's throwing Stacey under the bus on camera, suggesting Stacey was chasing after a married man. The next minute she's claiming she knew Stacey before the show, gave her advice, doesn't want to take credit, but clearly wants the credit. Charisse wants to be the victim and the villain, the insider and the outsider, the loyal friend and the truth teller, and you can't be all of those things at once. The contradictions catch up with you eventually. She also revealed that she'd suggested to producers that she should have a sit-down with Monique, not because she wanted to genuinely resolve anything, but because she knew it would make good television. And that admission right there is the part that exposes what's really happening. Charisse doesn't want to leave the show. She wants to stay on the show. She'll befriend anyone, betray anyone, suggest any storyline as long as it keeps her in the game. Calling out Gizelle for being jealous of Nene leaks, for being threatened by the possibility of Nene returning to the network, Charisse was probably right about that. These housewives are all competing to be Andy Cohen's favorite, to be the one who gets the most screen time, the best edit, the loudest applause at BravoCon. Production pits them against each other, strategically hyping them up to fuel exactly this kind of cattiness. While Charisse made all these revelations and laid out the case for why she's been wronged and misunderstood, Ashley Darby was preparing her response, and when it dropped, it was a masterclass in how not to handle a PR crisis. Ashley came to social media with a video, no glam squad, no script, just her talking directly to the camera. From the very first sentence, you could tell this wasn't going to go well. She started by saying she doesn't usually come to social media, that this isn't her thing, that she's not one to engage like this. That's already a red flag, because if you're not one to engage on social media, why are you engaging now? What changed? What pressure finally broke through your resolve to stay silent? Ashley claimed she appreciated people who maintained the same energy they had during the season. A subtle dig at Charisse for switching up her story. A subtle dig at anyone who's been critical of her choices. And then she pivoted to the part that left everyone confused. She said, and this is a direct paraphrase, that she's a consenting adult who only engages with other consenting adults. That if people want to get into the nuances of that, fine, but consenting adult to consenting adult, always and forever. The immediate reaction from everyone watching was to ask who said she wasn't a consenting adult, who accused her of breaking the law. That's not what people were saying at all. People were saying she broke girl code, that sleeping with your friend's son is weird and uncomfortable and crosses a line that has nothing to do with legality. People were questioning her judgment, her loyalty, her sense of boundaries. Nobody said she committed a crime. Nobody suggested Jackson wasn't of legal age. The criticism was about ethics, not legality. And by framing it as a legal issue, Ashley revealed something important. She's trying to reframe the conversation. She's trying to move the goalposts so that defending herself becomes easier. That's a classic deflection tactic. Take the accusation nobody made and defend yourself against that instead of addressing the actual criticism. Defending yourself against a legal accusation is simple because you're either guilty or you're not. Defending yourself against the accusation that you violated trust, that you prioritized your own desires over your friendship with Charisse, that you made a choice that was selfish and hurtful, that's much harder to argue. Ashley went on to say that she's not one to engage on social media, that it's never been her forte, but that she'll be purged and ready sitting on the couch at the reunion. Translation being that she's saving the real tea for when she's getting paid to spill it, and she's not giving you the full story here. You'll have to tune in. She also mentioned that while she can acknowledge and take ownership of things she maybe did wrong, she won't take ownership of false rumors or narratives that are completely untrue. She abides by the law, respects the law, doesn't do anything that violates the law, and won't let people perpetuate lies about her. Again with the law. Again with this insistence that legality is the issue. And it makes you wonder what Ashley is so defensive about. Why she keeps circling back to this idea that she didn't break the law. Maybe it's because during the Carlos King interview, Charisse used the word incestuous to describe the situation. That may be what triggered this response. Incestuous is a strong word. It's provocative. It implies something deeply wrong, something that crosses moral and possibly legal lines. Even then, Charisse wasn't saying Ashley committed incest. She was saying the situation felt incestuous, meaning it felt uncomfortably close to a family dynamic being violated. That was a metaphor, not an accusation. Ashley heard that word, or heard the criticism building online, and decided she needed to come out swinging. Instead of swinging at the real issue, she swung at a straw man. She defended herself against charges nobody filed, and in doing so, she made herself look more guilty of the actual offense, being a bad friend. The internet didn't buy it. People pointed out that Ashley's response was tone-deaf, defensive, and completely missed the point. The more you watch that video, the more you see someone who's not sorry, who doesn't think she did anything wrong, and who's annoyed that she has to explain herself at all. That brings us to the larger question of why Ashley did this interview with Charisse in the first place. Why she would reveal this information on camera 2 years after it happened. Ashley, Gazelle, and Charisse sat down for a conversation that was supposed to be a reconciliation moment, a chance for these women to clear the air and move forward. Production had footage of them bonding, laughing, reconnecting. The only part that made it to air was the conversation about Jackson. Production knew what they wanted. They wanted the scandal. They wanted the uncomfortable reveal. They wanted to watch Charisse sit across from Ashley and process the fact that her friend had been intimate with her son. Ashley gave it to them. She volunteered this information, knowing exactly how it would be used. When Ashley says she's not here for the 15 minutes of fame, that she's not trying to use this for attention, it rings hollow. She's the one who brought it up. She's the one who made it a storyline. And now she's upset that people are reacting the way any reasonable person would react. The reunion is going to be brutal because Ashley can't just claim consenting adults and walk away. She's going to have to sit on that couch and explain why she thought this was appropriate, why she thought her friendship with Charisse was worth sacrificing for whatever she got out of that relationship with Jackson. And Charisse, despite all her contradictions and strategic maneuvering, is going to have a field day. While the Potomac drama unfolded, an entirely different storm was brewing in the love and hip-hop universe, and this one involves Mendeecees, Yandy Smith, Tamar Braxton, and Funky Dineva, a combination of personalities that was always going to explode. Mendeecees recently did a radio interview where he dropped a bombshell, revealing that he and Yandy Smith never actually got married, at least not legally. They had the ceremonies, the televised weddings, the public declarations of love. When it came time to make it official with the state, they didn't follow through. Yandy didn't want to marry him legally, initially because he had legal troubles he was dealing with. A second wedding was planned, the big event happened, but once again they decided not to file the paperwork. According to Mendeecees, they're no longer together now. They've separated. The relationship that fans watched evolve over multiple seasons, the partnership that seemed unshakable, is over. This revelation sent shockwaves through social media, and it also vindicated someone who'd been called a liar for months, Tamar Braxton. Tamar immediately took to social media with a post that was pure Tamar. She listed out prices for apologies: $10 if you called her a liar, $20 if you called her a homewrecker, $30 if you called her worse. She posted her Cash App and essentially told everyone to pay up. In Tamar's mind, Mendeecees confirming that he and Yandy are done proves that she wasn't lying about their connection, that whatever happened between her and Mendeecees, it wasn't her breaking up a marriage, just two single adults doing whatever single adults do. The problem with Tamar's victory lap is that being right about one thing doesn't mean you were right about everything, and the timeline still doesn't add up. Months ago, Funky Dineva came forward with allegations that Tamar and Mendeecees had been involved romantically. He claimed he'd seen them kissing in the back of a car, getting cozy at events, Mendeecees putting his hand between Tamar's legs during outings. When he and Tamar returned to her apartment one night, he didn't go upstairs with her because he just watched her and Mendeecees making out in the back seat and figured they wanted privacy. These were specific, detailed allegations, not vague rumors but eyewitness accounts from someone who was allegedly there. Tamar denied everything. She went on interviews and downplayed her relationship with Mendeecees, saying they were cool but not close, that he wasn't her homie, that people were reaching and creating drama where none existed. Mendeecees is doing the same thing now. In that radio interview, when asked about Funky's allegations, Mendeecees responded that he has no idea what Funky is talking about, that he wants to see Funky in person to ask him about these claims, that he's praying he bumps into him because he really wants answers. That sounds tough. That sounds like a man defending his honor. When you actually listen to the way Mendeecees answered those questions, when you pay attention to his word choices and his body language, a different story emerges. The interviewer asked him directly whether he and Tamar were kissing that night. Mendeecees answered no. The interviewer pressed further, asking if they weren't even talking close, like she had an earpiece in so he had to lean in to hear her. And that's when Mendeecees started hedging. His exact words were that technically, if he wanted to, he could do anything he wanted to do. He doesn't have to answer this, not at this point. He's answering to somebody, but that's not the case. Let's break that down. Technically, if I wanted to, I could do anything I wanted. That's not a denial, that's a deflection disguised as a denial. Because if the answer was a simple no, that's what he would have stated. No, we weren't kissing. No, nothing happened. Instead, he started talking about technicalities. That word technically is doing an enormous amount of work in that sentence, because technically means there's a loophole. Technically means there's a version of events where something did happen, but it doesn't count because of some contextual detail. If you were truly single and truly uninvolved with someone, you wouldn't use the word technically, you'd just say no. Full stop. Mendeecees didn't stop there though. He mentioned that he's answering to somebody, not Yandy apparently, since they're broken up. The question becomes, who is he answering to? Who is the somebody that makes him careful about how he responds to questions about Tamar? This is where the theory gets interesting. What if Mendeecees wasn't with Yandy during the time these alleged incidents with Tamar occurred, but he was dating someone else? What if there's a mystery woman in the picture? Someone he doesn't want to upset or expose, and that's why he's being so careful with his words. That would explain everything. It would explain why he's denying the Tamar connection without actually denying it, why he keeps talking about technicalities and who he's answering to, why his story feels incomplete. And if that's the case, Funky Dineva's allegations become even more credible. Funky has been consistent. He's doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on what he saw. No backing off, no softening his claims. He's standing firm and waiting for Mendeecees to make the next move. Mendeecees is already backtracking. He's already creating distance between himself and a clear answer, and that's not what innocent people do. Innocent people say no and move on. Guilty people, or people protecting someone, start talking about technicalities. The interviewer tried to help him out, pointing out that he was single at this point. This was a few months ago. It's not like they were together. Mendeecees latched onto that lifeline, agreeing that yes, technically he could do whatever he wanted. That's not an answer though. That's an evasion. And the more Mendeecees evades, the more credible Funky's story becomes. Both of these situations are about performance versus reality. Ashley Darby performs the role of the cool, confident housewife who's unbothered by criticism. When the criticism actually lands, when people call her out for crossing a line, she can't maintain that performance. She gets defensive, reframes the argument, and ends up looking worse than if she just stayed quiet. Mendeecees performs the role of the loyal partner, the reformed man, the guy who's moved past his mistakes and built a stable life. When pressed about his connection to Tamar, when forced to give a straight answer, the performance cracks. He stumbles over his words, talks about technicalities, and reveals that whatever the truth is, it's more complicated than he wants to admit. Charisse performs the role of the wronged original, the woman who's been used by the show and betrayed by her castmates. Her own words betray her though. She admits to suggesting storylines for attention, to strategically positioning herself, to playing the game just as hard as everyone else. The only person in both of these stories who isn't performing is Funky Dineva, and that's what makes him dangerous. He's not trying to protect a brand or maintain an image. He's telling his version of events, backing it up with details, and daring anyone to prove him wrong. Mendeecees says he can't wait to see Funky, that he wants to ask these questions himself. What's he going to ask though? Funky has already told his story, already described what he saw in vivid detail, already explained why he didn't go upstairs to Tamar's apartment that night. The only question left is whether Mendeecees is going to admit that Funky is telling the truth or continue to deny it and hope people move on. What Mendeecees doesn't understand is that Funky isn't going to move on. When Funky responds to this radio interview, and he will respond because this is Funky we're talking about, he's going to come with more receipts, more details, more context that makes Mendeecees look even worse. When that happens, all of Mendeecees' talk about wanting to see Funky, about praying he bumps into him, is going to sound hollow. You can't outtalk someone who's holding the truth. You can only hope to outlast them. Funky has proven time and time again that he's willing to outlast anyone. The same dynamic is playing out in Potomac. Ashley thinks she can control the narrative by releasing a video, by framing the issue as a legal question instead of an ethical one. The reunion is coming though, and when Andy Cohen sits her down on that couch and asks her to explain herself, all of her carefully constructed defenses are going to crumble. Andy isn't going to ask her if she broke the law. He's going to ask her if she considered Charisse a friend. He's going to ask her when the relationship with Jackson started. He's going to ask her why she thought it was appropriate to bring this up on camera 2 years later. He's going to ask her if she has any regrets. Ashley won't be able to hide behind consenting adults then. She won't be able to deflect to legality. She'll have to answer for the choice she made, the friendship she betrayed, and the mess she created. Charisse, for all her faults, will have the moral high ground in that moment. Not because she's blameless, but because Ashley handed it to her. Gazelle will be sitting there watching it all unfold, probably thrilled that the heat is on someone else for once. This is what happens when people mistake fame for power. Ashley thought that because she's a main cast member, because she has a platform, because she can release videos and control her own narrative to some extent, she could manage this situation. She can't though, because the internet doesn't care about your platform. The internet cares about the truth, and when your version of events doesn't match what people can see with their own eyes, when your defense raises more questions than it answers, the internet turns on you. Mendeecees is learning the same lesson. He thought he could sit down for an interview, deny the Tamar rumors, and move on with his life. His denials were too weak, his answers too evasive, his body language too defensive. Now the internet is dissecting every word, every pause, every technically. The streets were already talking about Mendeecees and Tamar before Funky said a word. Multiple sources had come forward with similar stories about seeing them together, getting cozy at clubs, acting like more than friends. Funky just confirmed what people were already whispering about: when multiple independent sources are telling the same story, when the details line up, when the person being accused can't give a straight answer, the truth becomes pretty clear. Ashley Darby is bracing for a reunion that's going to put her in the hot seat. Mendeecees is waiting for Funky Dineva to respond, knowing that whatever Funky says next is going to make this situation worse. Tamar is posting Cash App requests and acting like she's been vindicated, when really she's just created more questions. Charisse is trying to position herself as the victim, while simultaneously admitting that she's just as strategic and manipulative as the women she's criticizing. Nobody in these stories is innocent. Nobody is fully telling the truth, and that's what makes this so fascinating. Because in reality TV, we're used to clear heroes and villains. We're used to rooting for one side and against the other. These situations are messy and complicated and full of contradictions, though. Ashley isn't wrong that she and Jackson are consenting adults, but that doesn't make what she did okay. Mendeecees might technically have been single when whatever happened with Tamar happened, but that doesn't mean he's being honest about it now. Charisse has legitimate grievances about how she's been treated by the show, but she's also actively participating in the same behavior she condemns. The truth is somewhere in the middle of all these competing narratives, and the only way we're going to get closer to it is by watching what happens next. Ashley still has to face that reunion. Mendeecees still has to deal with Funky's inevitable response. Charisse still has to reckon with the fact that she's burned most of her bridges with the cast. Tamar still has to explain why her story keeps changing every time new information comes out. The performance is over, at least for now. The cameras have stopped rolling. What we're seeing is what happens when reality catches up to the people who've been performing for so long they forgot where the character ends and the real person begins. Ashley thought she could lawyer her way out of a friendship betrayal, and she can't. Mendeecees thought he could deny his way out of a romantic entanglement, and he can't. Both of them are about to learn that the internet has a long memory and an even longer attention span when it comes to holding people accountable. Funky Dineva is taking his time. He's letting Mendeecees dig his own grave with these interviews, letting the contradictions pile up. When he finally responds, it's going to be devastating because Funky doesn't play. He doesn't back down. He doesn't make allegations he can't support. The same energy is building toward the Potomac reunion. Production already has the footage they need to make Ashley squirm, footage of her sitting across from Charisse and revealing this information with a smile on her face. They have the reactions, the uncomfortable silences, the moments where you can see Charisse processing what she's hearing. All of it is going to be used. They're going to replay those scenes, freeze on Ashley's face, ask her what she was thinking in that moment. They're going to give Charisse the opportunity to say everything she held back during filming. Let the other cast members weigh in, pick sides, add their own commentary. It's going to be a bloodbath, and Ashley walked right into it. This is the cost of fame in the reality TV era. You can't control everything. You can manage your image to a point, release strategic statements, choose when and where to engage. The truth finds its way out eventually, though. The contradictions catch up, the performance falters. When it does, the audience is right there watching, dissecting, holding you accountable for every word you uttered and every choice you made. Ashley Darby and Mendeecees are both experiencing that reckoning right now. The difference is that Ashley still thinks she can talk her way out of it. Mendeecees knows he can't, which is why he's resorting to threats about wanting to see Funky in person. Threats don't erase receipts, though. Anger doesn't invalidate allegations. Denial doesn't work when the details are this specific and this consistent. The only question left is how much worse this gets before it gets better. How many more interviews will Mendeecees do where he accidentally reveals more than he intends? How many more statements will Ashley release that only make her look more guilty? How long will Charisse keep talking out of both sides of her mouth before people stop listening altogether? Credibility is fragile. That's the other lesson here. You can lose it in a single interview, a single video, a single moment where you utter the wrong thing or defend yourself against the wrong accusation. Ashley lost credibility when she made it about the law instead of about loyalty. Mendeecees lost credibility when he said technically instead of no. Charisse loses credibility every time she contradicts herself or admits to the same strategic behavior she criticizes in others. Once you lose credibility, getting it back is almost impossible. You can apologize, explain, try to reframe, but the damage is done. The audience has seen behind the curtain, they know you're performing, and they're not interested in the performance anymore. They want the truth. The problem is that the truth is messy. It doesn't fit neatly into sound bites or social media posts. It requires nuance, context, the willingness to admit fault and take responsibility, and none of the people in these stories seem capable of that. What we get instead is deflection, denials that sound like confessions, threats and Cash App requests, and reunion teases. Everything except the one thing that would actually end this, which is honesty. Maybe that's asking too much, though. Maybe in the world of reality TV, where your worth is measured in screen time and storylines, where admitting fault means giving up power, honesty is too expensive a currency. Maybe the performance is all we're ever going to get, and maybe that's enough. Watching the performance fall apart, watching people scramble to maintain control of a narrative that's already slipped through their fingers, watching the mask crack and the truth peek through, that's its own kind of entertainment. Ashley Darby will sit on that reunion couch, Mendeecees will eventually cross paths with Funky Dineva, whether in person or through another round of social media warfare. Charisse will keep trying to insert herself back into the narrative. Tamar will keep posting about apologies she'll never receive. The cycle continues. The drama escalates. We'll all be here watching it unfold, waiting for the next slip-up, the next revelation, the next moment when someone utters too much or not enough and the internet pounces. That's the game, and everyone playing it knows the rules. The only difference is that some people are better at playing than others. And right now, Ashley and Mendeecees are losing. Badly. The question isn't whether they can recover, the question is whether they'll even try, or whether they'll keep digging, keep deflecting, keep performing until there's nothing left but the wreckage of their own making. Only time will tell. If history is any indication, though, we haven't seen the worst of this yet. The reunion hasn't aired, Funky hasn't responded. Somewhere in the background, production is already planning the next season, the next storyline, the next scandal. This is reality TV. The show must go on, even when the people in it are falling apart.